Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again, it is Sunday, and that means it's time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly vlog I put out where I ask you as my viewers and subscribers about something that deals with guns, gun culture, politics, current events, the news, or something fun like EDC that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. And this week's question dives into an aspect of the firearms culture and the firearms world that I don't really know that much about, something that I haven't collected much myself, and that is military surplus. I know that when I first got into firearms, probably 10 to 12 years ago, the surplus market was huge. Not huge when it came to price, but huge when it came to all of the selection and all of the firearms that were coming into the country. You could buy Mosin Nagants really cheap for under $100. A lot of people passed on them because they were just cheap, foreign-made military surplus guns. But over time, the interest in these military surplus guns grew and grew and grew, and now the cost of these guns is kind of out of control for what they are. And I also kind of feel like, well, if I wanted to join the military surplus bandwagon, well, that ship has really kind of sailed. The golden age of military surplus firearms is over. I kind of think of it like Bitcoin. You know, when Bitcoin was trading at $62,000 a Bitcoin, everyone says, you got to get into the crypto market. No, the time to have gotten into the crypto market was when it was $1 for $1, not now. I kind of feel like military surplus is that way. Now, granted, there are a lot of guns that occasionally come into the country, old Beretta pistols, really cool World War II bolt-action rifles, but then you look at the price and you're like, why would I spend $1,000 for a military surplus rifle that probably 10 or 12 years ago would have been $100 to $120? Yeah, it's cool, but it's a beat-up old rifle. But I know some people are really into them, some people like to sporterize them, some people like to collect them, and some people don't care at all for whatever reasons, and maybe something in between. So that's what this week's question is about. So with all that said, let's dive right into this week's question and get your results. In the past week or so, I have had the opportunity to review a couple of Bulgarian Makarov pistols. One of these pistols were imported and sold as military surplus. As a collector, this is a side of the gun world I have not ventured too much into. I do not currently own or collect any surplus firearms, but that doesn't mean I never will. So I'm wanting to ask my subscribers about their personal interest, or lack thereof, in surplus firearms and or collecting. Do you personally collect or buy surplus firearms? And if you do, what interests you the most about them? And you know, the thing that really surprised me this week was not the results of the poll, but how many people participated in the poll. This is one of the lowest numbers I have ever gotten. So even the people that aren't interested in milsurp rifles and pistols weren't even interested in this poll. And that's very, very telling. And the reason it surprised me is because many of the other channels that I follow, like Iraqi Veteran 8888, they have a lot of videos on military surplus guns. In fact, there's other channels that are dedicated to them, and they get hundreds of thousands of views. So this is something that I thought that I was simply missing out on. I don't know why. I was like, well, everyone else seems to be making content about it and collecting these. I'm just not into it. Am I missing the boat? Well, maybe I'm not, because you guys don't seem to be interested in it that much. But there are a few of you that are. So, with that said, let's actually see what this week's results are. With only 412 votes as of me filming this video, we have yes for collecting purposes. I love older military firearms, 42%. Yes for recreational purposes. They are quality but cheap guns, 22%. No, they do not interest me. I prefer newer designs and tech, 31%. And something else, explain in the comments, 5%. Now for me, when it comes to my interest, yes, these are old military guns. And of course, you guys know I love the history of firearms. So they do intrigue me from that standpoint. However, whenever I go to a gun show and I see these rifles, often they're beat up or they're modified in some way. They've been sporterized. The stocks have been chopped up and they have been designed for more modern purposes, where I, as a collector, would rather have the originals. But those are harder to come by. They're more expensive and they're not in that great of shape. It's one of those reasons why I say the golden age of surplus is gone. It's never going to come back. So if you're someone that might want to venture into these waters, unless you're willing to spend a lot of money, well, you're not going to get anything quality. But who knows, maybe I am wrong. But let's go through each one of these and I'll give you guys my personal thoughts and opinions. First, we have yes, for collecting purposes, I love older military firearms. And as you guys know, this sounds like it would be right up my alley, and it kind of is. There's definitely rifles out there that I'm really interested in and would love to own one. One of them is the Mosin gun. I forget the exact model, but I know it was one of the last variations that had 59 in the model name. I don't know if it would say 3059. I don't even know the nomenclature. I don't even follow it. But they came in a few years ago, and they were shorter carbine versions. I thought those were really cool because they have some type of interesting Cold War heritage, but of course those cost way too much money. I'm sorry, I am not spending $700 when you can find them on a rifle that was originally $100. But the people that collect these and the nicer quality ones just kind of hoard on to them. And I don't blame them because they have something that other people are willing to spend a lot of money on. And I'm a capitalist and I'm all about it. But for someone like me that would just have a fleeting interest in these things, they're way out of my price point because I'm not going to spend that type of money on a rifle that I'm not really going to do much with. It's just a curiosity. It's something that I would put in the safe and bring out and go, hey, look at the history of this gun. Yeah, it's kind of beat up. Yeah, it's a little bit rusted, but isn't it cool? It's not worth the money people are asking for. That's just me, but the idea of the military surplus stuff really does. But the price point and the availability of quality firearms now, it simply makes me more disinterested. And as such, I don't really venture into this. Then we have yes, for recreational purposes, they are quality but cheap guns. And granted, they are cheaper than some of the other modern options. I do know a lot of people buy these and they chop up the stocks and they sporterize them and they modernize them, and that's great and wonderful. But for me, if I'm going to have some type of modern gun with all modern amenities, give me the latest and greatest tech. Something that I might not be able to buy in the future. You guys know I would much rather have semi-auto over bolt action for most applications, and all these military surplus rifles are going to be bolt action. So if I'm going to buy the old bolt action, I want it to be in the original configuration. So the sporterization of it doesn't really interest me all that much, but I'm glad that there are other people that find this avenue of collecting interesting, because that's what makes the gun world so fascinating and so big and awesome, is that we can all enjoy different aspects of it. Then we have no, they do not interest me. I prefer newer designs and tech. And for me personally, this is the one that I would have voted on. Not because I'm not 100% disinterested, just because for the price and the cost of admission, it's not worth it. If I'm gonna spend $700, $800, $900 or $1,000 on a gun, well, I want it to be new. If these rifles were what they were when they first came into the country, or these pistols when they first came in, you know, these old police trade-in Berettas from the 50s that are really cool in models they no longer make, well, if they were $200, I'd be all over it. But now, as soon as they hit the market, they're $500. Or if they're originally sold in small batches, people get them and then immediately flip them on Gunbroker. I'm not a big fan of that. Hey, it's the marketplace, it's capitalism, I'm totally cool. But unless you really get in on the ground floor, for me, it just doesn't hold any interest. It makes me go, I'm gonna pass on all that and I'm gonna spend my money on more modern things. I do appreciate them, but these aren't gonna make their way into my collection just because of the cost of admission. And then we have something else, explain in the comments 5%. And I have to say, this also got some of the fewest comments I've ever had, only 16 total comments. But with all that said, now you guys know how I feel. Let's see what the top rated comments of the week were. And with the top rated comment of the week, we have Knife Tex, who said, I think the people that truly geek out on surplus firearms are more history oriented. For me at least, I would want to know the whole story of the firearm. Unfortunately, my time and interests guide my attention in other directions. I do admire and enjoy listening to someone who knows a lot about a given weapon, even if I've got no interest in the weapon itself. And I can understand why this is the top rated comment, because this is exactly how I feel. This encapsulates my thoughts exactly. I love learning everything I can about particular gun models, especially if a particular example has history to it. I love learning all I can, but I'm just not going to spend the money on an old beat up rusted rifle and pay way too much money for it. I'll let the other people that love that stuff do that, and good on them. I support them. As I said, I'm a capitalist. Then we have Secret Agent 8126, who says, I used to collect surplus arms when they were cheap and plentiful. With not many new surplus arms coming in, and as income has gone up, my collecting has shifted to other items. Doesn't seem to be much of a market for me in overpriced surplus items anymore. Yep. And I understand, I'm in that boat as well. If I have the money to spend on a nice firearm, I'm going to buy a nice firearm, not an old beat up one. But the people that have them, the nicer surplus, they're asking way too much money for them. So I just don't partake in that avenue and that aspect of the firearms community. Then we have Stevo 5459, who says, as an AK fan, I thought it only natural to venture into some cool Comblock pistols. The research I did on the Makarov led me to the East German version from 1961. That is a fine pistol with an amazing trigger and accuracy. It's German. What do you expect? Also added a CZ82 and a Polish P64 with an actual 20-pound double action. Found a spring kit to lower that by almost half. Also very accurate and very compact. I find it all very interesting, but I think the commie stuff is where I'd leave it besides a wartime Walther PPK. Then I promise to stop. And man, you guys are all echoing the same sentiments that I have. As I said, there are a few of these military surplus guns that I would be interested in at the right price. But I'm not someone that just wants to have a whole complete collection of Mosin Nagants or all the Swiss rifles and all that. It's just not what's going to interest me. I'm going to spend my money elsewhere. But there are a couple out there that if I saw at the right price and it really was original and unmolested, I might jump on it. Then we have Im3 or IMB3, who says, I like imagining what the story could be behind the used firearms I collect. On the flip side, I like buying the sought-after firearms that are new in the box, anticipating that they'll be crazy barn find down the road that everybody will be jealous of. I also have a variety that I love to shoot and show off. I guess I'm just an all-around gun whore. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that either. But you know, on the old show called Pawn Stars on the History Channel, there used to be something that he would say, I think his name was Rick Harrison. He said the things that are collectible in the future are the things that aren't collectible now, or things you can never guess. For example, toys from the 1980s, things that we probably all had. Well, if you're of my generation anyway, things that we used, loved, abused, and threw away. But because we all loved, used, and abused those things and threw them away, so few have remained to today. And those things that were never going to be collectors at that time are the collectors today. So anytime you see a gun that's a limited edition, rare, or what have you, often they're not going to appreciate in value as much, even if they are a limited production, because everybody that bought one is going to take care of it and keep it. Therefore, the number is going to be pretty static. However, those guns of the past that people were like, that's a piece of junk. Who wants that? Like Glock Generation 1s. Nobody wanted them when they hit the market. Now, everybody wants to collect a Gen 1 and will pay out the nose for one because nobody was expecting them to be a real gem and collectible in the future. And then finally we have EdTom82, who says, I saw an SKS at a local gun store, $650. For that price, I'd rather get, well, pretty much anything else. And yes, I'm in that boat too. What is it? The stories I heard is those SKSs used to be like $200. At that price point, that's the one to have gotten. And as I said, that boat has sailed. You'll never see an SKS anymore at that price point. And so since that boat has sailed, I'm not going to be buying any. But I'm glad for those people that did. If you got in on that bottom level, well, good for you. But if I wanted to get into this type of collecting today, I'm just going to pass. I'm going to buy the new stuff. And that's just my personal opinion. So that is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. Very interesting. I didn't have a lot of results, but hopefully in the future, the questions that I'll ask will get more interaction. I think next week's is going to be a political poll, so those usually get a lot of interesting responses. But if you have an idea for a poll question that you guys would like to hear, please feel free to email me at texasgunvault@gmail.com. I would love to get your input, and if I use your question, I will definitely give you credit. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, and do my thoughts echo yours when it comes to collecting military surplus? So, as always, thanks for watching.